everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Virtual Coffee. My name is Alexa Collier, and on this podcast, I interview and chat with small business owners from around the world. Now, if you can hear my dog eating in the background, that's just Ollie eating his dinner. You can ignore that for now. But on today's episode, we have Erika, the founder and owner of Nutty for Bread. Now, Erika sells homemade sweetbreads and other baked goods like cake pops, cakes, cookies. You can see them all on her Instagram and how delicious they all look. Now, during this episode, we discuss her plans for the future for Nutty for Bread, how she creates and tests recipes, and her favorite items to make. Now, before we hear from Erika, as always, I'd appreciate if you could rate and review Virtual Coffee on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. Just helps get our name out there and helps others discover the small businesses that we feature on the podcast. You can also follow us on all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's all at Virtual Coffee Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. And now let's hear from Erika. Welcome, Erika. Thank you so much for being on Virtual Coffee.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, me too. Well, we'll get into the specifics here in a bit, but at first, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Nutty for Bread, the mission of the business, kind of why it exists, and then we can go from there.
Okay, perfect. My name's Erika Gomez. I am the founder and owner of Nutty for Bread. I'm a mom of two. I have a 20-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. I do work full-time in a corporate office, and then I also, have my full-time business with the bakery.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. And how long ago did Nutty for Bread start?
So I started it up in 2014. It was just seasonal. And then eventually, I did let some time go by where I did stop. And it wasn't until 2022, the end of 2022, that I decided to pick things back up full time.
Wow. So a long time it's been, going, whether it was on pause for a little bit or in the background, but a long time. That's awesome. I always love to know where this started from. So was baking these breads a passion? Was it a hobby? Like, how did it turn from maybe something you were doing on the side to a business?
So I always had the passion for baking. Growing up, I would go to my aunt's house over the weekends, and we would always end up baking something, cookies, brownies, cupcakes, things like that. And then from there, I started baking on my own. As I got older, of course, I just started to really fall in love with it. My father, when I was younger, he did have a business of his own. So I thought that was very interesting. And I guess I kind of kept that always in the back of my mind that I wanted to open up my own business. When I got into high school, I actually did want to become a pastry chef, but that didn't work back then. Life took its own course.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until, 2014 that I decided to start it up again. I had this obsession with banana nut bread growing up, and that's pretty much how it all started. And basically the mission for Nutty for Bread is I like to make things fresh, baked goods from scratch with fresh ingredients, fresh fruit, and quality ingredients.
You may not have become, a pastry chef in the official capacity, but you're certainly a really successful baker, right? Like you said, you took your own path and kind of dealt with what life gave you and made it your own. I think that's really inspiring.
Yes, definitely.
Can you give our audience an idea of some of the different types of bakes that you sell? Maybe someone who hasn't visited your Instagram or your website yet. What kind of food do you bake and sell?
Sure. So the main product that I started out with, and it's one of my big sellers, are, of course, my sweetbreads. So I make anything from banana bread, blueberry breads, of mango bread, things like that. I also do sell cookies. I do cake pops, custom orders. I do bundt cakes, brownies, scones, and other baked goods.
That all sounds really delicious. And are you able to ship within the United States? Like, what are your ranges of shipping your products, just so our audience knows?
So I do ship nationwide.
Was that hard to do with food? I know food can be very tricky. Like, I know that's an accomplishment. How was getting that up and running?
In the beginning, I had no idea, what things I needed for it. I did have some friends that were in the food industry that did tell me, okay, this is what you're going to need to buy. So I was told I needed to buy a heat sealer. So I do package all the baked goods and then I heat seal it. So that way it stays nice and fresh by the time it gets to your home while it's being shipped.
I know that's impressive. Just speaking to other business owners who handle food, that can be tricky, right? Like some unexpected bumps in there, but that's awesome. I'm really glad you figured it out. How do you come up with your recipes? With people who sell baked goods and food, did you have a recipe that you followed at first? Is it all from scratch? Like what's some of that behind the scenes that you can tell us about?
So growing up, I did keep a bunch of recipes that I, loved, that I enjoyed to bake. And then from there, I would take those recipes and tweak it as my own. I would add a different ingredient or, switch things up. I just needed like the base model of the recipe. And then from there, I experimenting here and there. You start creating things.
That's impressive though, because I know how hard, when I like to bake, but it's certainly from a very well-written recipe. It is not from my own brain. So that's really awesome. That's impressive. That's not easy to do. And is it usually just you in the kitchen? Do you have a team? Do you have some taste testers who maybe are your family and friends? Like who is there to support you throughout this?
So it is just me
Nice.
doing everything, the baking, the marketing, the testing. I do give to my sons or, other family members for them to test it out, see if they like it. And then I go from there if I decide to add it to the menu.
That's a lot to do. And how is that with, kind of balancing or also having your corporate job? I personally have a corporate job as well, and that can get very overwhelming. And then adding on fulfilling orders and creating new recipes, doing social media for Nutty for Bread. Any advice there you have for folks who might be balancing, that full-time job and their own business as well?
I would say organization. Pretty much without it, you're going to fail. So what I try to do is when I'm working at my corporate job, I solely stick to doing that. Granted, it is working from home as well, but I do wait until I'm off the clock with that job to start completing my orders for Nutty for Bread.
I like that advice because I think sometimes folks say, or just what I've heard on other podcasts and other folks online saying, oh, you have 5 minutes in between sending an email, do something for your business. Like they say to multitask, but I like your perspective because as humans, we really can't multitask that well, right? Like our brains just can't. So I like how you're saying, focus on the one. Okay, you're off the clock for that. Now you can move on to the next thing. I think that's refreshing to hear. And because we just live in that, that hustle culture, you have to do something every minute of the day. Exactly. And I like that perspective that you have there. I think
the other good thing, with social media, we have all these wonderful apps where we can pre-program what we want to post, and then it'll post on the time that you tell it to. So It's like you're being able to work both, but you really don't have to worry about one as much as you have to be, solely focused in the other.
I need to take that piece of advice for sure, because I always forget that it's such a rookie mistake. But like even on Instagram that you can schedule the post like you're saying, I need to remember that. Thank you for reminding me, because that means I can, do my post when I'm laying in bed at 10 p.m., but have it post tomorrow at 3. And that's a good reminder. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. With Nutty for Bread, did you have any experience with running a business prior to starting it? Sounds like you had some inspiration from your dad when you were younger, or did you just jump into it once you kind of had the idea to start selling your baked goods?
So in 2014, when I started it up seasonally, I had no idea what I was doing. And then from there, a network marketing company, I decided to dabble into that. So I would say, yes, that was kind of like my first business per se. And I kind of call it my business school for those 7 years that I did do it, because it did help me develop into the person that I am today and develop those skills that I need towards having my own business.
For others listening who might have their own business or are looking to start one, do you have that, kind of one thing you'd recommend? Like, oh, make sure you pay attention to this or learn how to do this. Just reflecting on your own journey. Was there one thing that surprised you that you didn't realize you'd have to take on, that you'd kind of not warn other people about, but give them a heads up about?
So I would say, because I'm in the baking field, in order to get noticed, you do have to go out and expose yourself. So I was never one to be out doing events. It wasn't until last year that I started getting some messages asking if I wanted to be a vendor at this event or that event. And I said, yes, definitely, I will do it, because I know I need the exposure in order to be able to grow my business some more. So sometimes you have to go and do things that you're not comfortable with to be able to proceed or succeed into growing your business.
That's a good perspective. And I think it's that balanced with, it's like physical presence in person, like you're mentioning doing events, and then also pairing that with social media, right? Have you found social media tricky? And that's a leading question because I find it very tricky, but I'm curious how you feel about it. Just keeping up with posts and engagement. Yeah. What are some of your thoughts around that?
So with social media, when I was doing my network marketing business, it was based off of social media as well. So
Okay.
I learned the tricks or the skills that you needed to do to be able to grow your business through there. I would say the only thing that kept getting complicated was the change of the algorithm that Instagram always does, and you think you're getting it down this way, and then all of a sudden it shifts, and then you have to go and try to you basically have to pivot to figure out how to do it all over again to be able to get noticed.
Besides your reminder that you can schedule posts on Instagram, which is very helpful for me, any other tips or tricks you have that you can share about social media? Maybe just like your top one that you'd share with others.
Be consistent. In order to grow a following, in order for anybody to take you seriously, you have to be consistent, whether it be posting, whether it be on the stories, and you have to constantly be engaging with people, creating conversations, like genuine conversations with them. So that way they get to know you and they get a feel of who you are. And then eventually, they will become a customer of yours and, start testing your products.
Yeah, it really is all about consistency, isn't it? Like even I notice even if I just post some stories like 3 days in a row, my engagement is so much higher than if I do it, 3 times a week or, just when I want to. So it's so true. And I think the algorithm favors consistency. Would you, have you found that as well?
It does. And also if you do lives, that actually brings your engagement up more. Yeah. I personally have not done a live yet. That is something that I'm still very uncomfortable with.
Sure.
But I know in the future I will definitely be getting that in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. You could do a live, like, bake this bread with me. That'd be cool.
Yes. Yeah, that actually would be.
That's awesome. Have you gotten into TikTok or Reels at all yet? I'm just curious.
I've done Reels. No, I have not gone into TikTok yet.
It's hard, isn't it? I have ideas for TikToks and Reels, but there's something about video that is just a lot trickier if you don't have experience with it. I don't know. That's at least what I found.
Yeah, it's the editing, and you have to be able to capture things that it will grab people's attention.
Exactly. And to your point, the editing, right? It is not as simple as just film this quick thing and post it. Like, it is not that at all. Oh,
Granted,
man.
it doesn't have to be anything like professional.
Right.
Because I feel like the more you try to get professional, the less views you get on it. But the more that, you kind of keep it simple, you get a lot more views, a lot more engagement off of that. That's what I've learned throughout doing it.
No, definitely. I agree completely. I can't imagine the amount of time it takes, like the more quote unquote professional videos you do see on Reels and TikTok, like how much time that takes to edit. If you need to edit, a more simple video, like, man, that must take forever. I have respect for the content creators on there.
Yes, I do too.
Awesome. Well, going back to your baked goods, what's your favorite thing you've ever baked? Do you have a favorite item?
The sweetbreads are my favorite, but other than that, I do like to bake decadent desserts, things like eclairs, cream puffs, Napoleons, things like that, because it is a little bit more complicated, but it's a lot of fun for me.
And have you ever had something that you've tried and it's just been so hard or did not come out right? Or do you have like that one thing you're trying to perfect? I'm just curious, like that process before the final product, what that's like.
Decorating. When it comes to decorating, like let's say cakes, I get so frustrated because it has to come out perfect. Thankfully with the cake pops, I've started to develop my decorating skills a little bit more through that. But at the beginning, I was so frustrated. I wanted to throw everything.
Mash it all up and just toss it.
Yeah. My husband has seen me frustrated a few times. He's like,
I'm sure.
Breathe, just take it easy. It's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not okay.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good point, because even if something tastes absolutely delicious, if you're wanting to add that decoration to it, that's a whole other beast. Like, that's a whole other skill set. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I've had some breads, I go to bake them and they come out like in the middle, they just flopped in there. So obviously I must have forgotten an ingredient or something. So I had to go back and redo it. So nothing is perfect. We have our moments.
Do you manage all your orders like through your website mainly?
Not really. No, it's more like DMs. I get I get more DMs than I have the order form online. But I do get orders from there.
That's interesting. And on that kind of ordering same point there, when you go to events like markets and whatnot, how do you predict how much to bake to bring? Because I can imagine that's a little tricky with food, because anything you don't sell, you either have to sell somewhere else or toss. So how do you try to predict that out accurately?
So basically, it's the amount of hours that you're there for. And then I do ask, some of the vendors that have done it prior, how much product is it that they put out or that they bring, so that way I can get an idea as to what I want to bring to. I know my first event that I did, I made 40 breads and I managed to sell 30 of them. So I had 10 left over. I had asked around if I have these extra breads, does anybody want to get them? Stuff like that. Or I'd post it on social media so that way I could sell the extras that I have.
That's a good idea. Finding other ways to sell. Yeah, that makes sense.
Pretty much you just have to go and you have to do your homework, basically.
Sure.
Ask around. That way you can get an idea as to how much you need to bring.
For sure. No, that makes sense. And I like the point of asking previous vendors or people who've done it before how much they've kind of sold. That's a good idea to leverage that network. And looking to the future, where are you hoping to take Nutty for bread? Do you have any, future milestones or goals you want to share with the audience?
So currently, I have filled out an application to be at a Sunday market in Safety Harbor, but I'm on the waiting list. I'm just sitting here waiting to be able to do that. And then I would say in a year or two, I'd like to have a small storefront and then see how that goes. And if it does amazing, then I would like to build my own bakery, from the ground up, somewhere near the water. I would say maybe 5 years down the line.
That sounds really fun though. And have you done any research, or what are the things that you have to start thinking about in order to open a storefront?
If you're going to buy land, you have to start looking where it is that you want to have your storefront and see what properties are available, the cost of that. Then you have to go get permits and surveys. You have to get it surveyed and things like that. But if storefront, I mean, that one is just easy. You see what's available for rent, and if it's the size that you need, then you can put your offer in and get that. Other things that you have to also look into is the cost of equipment.
And that's pretty high for food businesses, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was looking into commercial ovens, and they're pretty pricey.
Yeah. I can imagine. It sounds like that might be one of the not trickiest parts of scaling, but one of the biggest moments of scaling and expanding is opening that storefront, because you need to put so much like money, time, energy into it up front to then, see the return on it. So that's exciting though. I'm very much looking forward to continuing to follow your journey on that. Because that's a very exciting decision. Scary, but also very exciting, I'm sure.
Oh yes, very scary. When I was looking at those things, my heart stopped. I was like, oh my God, okay. This is how much this costs, and this is what I have to do that. And I was like, wow, a lot of things do go into building up your own business, your own storefront. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good luck. Please keep us updated.
Thank you. I definitely will.
So it sounds like for yourself, you're pretty heads down on Nutty for Bread. Do you have any other business ideas in your brain, or is it really let's take Nutty for Bread and continue to scale and expand?
It's really all Nutty for Bread from here on out. I eventually want to get out of my corporate job so I can be able to do more, be out there more, be at more events and things like that. But yeah, I definitely want to continue to pursue the Nutty for Bread business, and then maybe possibly in the future. We have family members that live in other countries, so I was thinking I had the idea of maybe opening one in a different country.
Wow.
Later down the road, yeah.
That would be really neat. Wow. Well, I'm very excited for these future goals and milestones. And like I said, just really looking forward to seeing it blossom on Instagram and whatnot. Erika, my last question for all my guests is, in this moment, what is your proudest accomplishment? And it's really just the first thing that pops into your mind. Maybe it's related to Nutty for Bread, maybe it's not. But what's that first thing that pops into your head when I ask you what your proudest accomplishment is so far?
My proudest accomplishment would be being able to manage everything just by myself, running a household, running Nutty for Bread, having my 9-to-5 job, and, all the other things that we have to tackle on daily life. I would say that every day is my proudest moment.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. What a way to end your episode. I really like that. Excellent. Well, Erika, before we sign off, where can people find you and Nutty for Bread? Shout out, website, social medias. Let us know where we can find you.
So my website, it's www.nuttyforbread.com. And then my Instagram page is NUTTY4BREAD.
Excellent. Well, I hope everyone checks you out. And again, thank you so much for being on Virtual Coffee. This is really fun.
Thank you so much for having me.